Hello and welcome to the Merle and Locke podcast. I'm Merle.
And I'm Locke.
Set sail and low expectations for everything nerd, accompanied by a healthy, albeit shameful, hope and pointless banter, lack of focus, and questionably acquired knowledge.
And more.
And more. So for today's topic, Locke, I wanted to get into a new game we've been delving into recently. It's not a new game, but I mean, it just released, the full version. It's a game called Planet Crafter.
The Planet Crafter.
Sorry, the Planet Crafter. So it's been in development for a long while now. I'm not entirely certain as to how long it's been in development, and it's a game made by Miju Games.
Bless you.
Miju. so Miju Games, and it's it was single player for the longest time. When it first came out on Steam, I was looking at it and it looked like a lot of fun, but oftentimes I don't opt for these single player survival games because I get bored playing by myself pretty easy.
Same.
So
I get it.
yeah, especially with these survival games. If it's like a heavy narrated or story driven game, then I can opt for that. Playing by myself. But if it's a survival game and there's a little bit of story in the background, but the main in the main essence of the game, it's just solely survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And build and what have you. But I love this whole like multiplayer, survival that's been coming out over recent years, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So if we go into the Planet Crafter specifically, so what you do is you start out, you crash onto this planet, and right from the get-go, you got a message on your little screen that's in your little escape pod that pops up, and it's just like you need to terraform this planet, right? And that's your sole purpose: terraform the planet. And it tells you that you're. I don't want to delve into the story too much for people that don't want any spoilers, but like essentially, it's an extradition. You did something wrong, and instead of being imprisoned, you're put on this barren planet, and your sole objective is to develop it.
Is it worse than imprisonment? I mean, now it's your only sole purpose is to just go and terraform a planet?
I guess it depends on the kind of person you are, really.
That's true. Some people might enjoy it.
yeah. Some people like that.
But I feel like if you were being imprisoned, they wouldn't want you to have a good time.
That's true. So you have to at least act miserable.
That's true.
Yeah. Of your, yeah. so it basically like you end up on this planet, and you have to like there's different things you have to build to be able to develop it, right? There's resources all over the place, that you can harvest. And you figure out how to obtain your own water, whether it be melting ice, or eventually you get these atmospheric condensers that collect water for you, and this and that. And like over time, you start unlocking more and more, technology, so that things become easier, more streamlined. You start knocking up those, like you have these certain goals in which to hit, like the amount of heat you introduce to the planet, the amount of oxygen you're producing, the amount of gas pressure that you're releasing from the surface of the planet. And all these things, have they're all in different categories, which unlock things for whatever it may be. And it's really, I don't know, I think it's really cool having like all these things locked up until you develop enough to unlock the next tier. And everything just becomes easier and easier, and you see the entirety of the planet. You see it transform over time, Like first it's just a dry desert wasteland, and then after you get your terraformation index, so far it starts raining, or ice starts melting, and you start seeing like lakes and grass and whatever, and obviously like we're at the point where like we haven't seen grass yet necessarily. It hasn't started sustaining, the planet hasn't started sustaining, that biological life in any sense quite yet.
We're still working on the biomass of it.
yeah, we're getting there, and I've been having an absolute ball with it, and like I haven't. Like we were talking about this yesterday, I think, where we were playing it, and you said, it reminded you a lot of the game Astroneer, which we put a lot of hours into.
A lot.
And I couldn't agree more, where the adoration I had for Astroneer, the adoration I have for the Planet Crafter now is on par with that, and I am just having an absolute ball with it. So as far as multiplayer goes for this game, like they hit it out of the park. You got 1 through 10. 1 through 10 people can be on the same in the same game. Yeah. And like that many people, that many friends, if you have that many friends to join you.
Don't bring it up.
It's dude, it's so much fun. And like you're the one that actually, brought up this game to me the other day, because it popped up on your Steam feed saying that it was now in full release, and I was hesitant about it. I was a bit apprehensive. It was on sale for like $16, so it wasn't like a big investment or anything. But I was like looking at it, and I was thinking it might not be exciting enough, because it doesn't have like any enemies and things like that, or things to keep you on edge constantly, or it didn't seem like it was engaging enough. But once I gave it a go, I was hooked, like almost like right from the get go. I was hooked. As soon as I started playing it, I was like, this is amazing, and I can't stop. We would go, like, I've been playing it for the last week. You just joined us yesterday, and I've been playing every night all week, like just losing sleep over this thing, because it's been like, it's so hard to put down, because there's always something to do, and you're constantly developing and getting ready for the next, whatever the next tier is, and trying to bring up like, your production of, certain things, whether it be oxygen or pressure or, biomass, whatever it may be. And you're just constantly working towards these little goals, and it's so rewarding, all the way through. And golly, I mean, and just before we started recording, like, we're recording late. Because
we are. Admittedly.
We're recording late because, we decided to play a little bit before we started recording. And we haven't been able to put it down. We've been at it for like, what, 2, maybe 3 hours or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Because as soon as I got up and I got on the computer, I went, I'm going to play a little bit. I'm going to try to get some things set up from our old base to our new base. And sure enough, you hop in. And I was just like, yeah, you can join me. And you're like, yeah. So there we are. Just
it's so good. And I mean, I feel like I've been playing this game for a while now, just because it's so, there's so much potential. Like it's hard to, fast track things, right? Because it kind of puts you in a place where things go static for a while, and there's like a little bit of a slow burn here and there. And I've seen some comments on the store page, some reviews, people fussing about that particular aspect. But in all reality, I love it, because you're constantly working towards these goals and trying to set things up. But then when things go static and you have to play the waiting game, that's the perfect time to go exploring. and you just go exploring, like find these rare materials and whatnot, discover new places, and the world is pretty big. Like there's one point where you can set up like a map system, from your base, and you can like look at the whole map. And when you do so, it looks small, right? Like you can kind of like scan around real quick, and you're like, "Oh, this place is tiny." But then once you actually like settle on a place you want to explore, and you're like, "Okay, let's just run over there quick," and it takes like forever to get there because it just like the perspective is just doesn't seem like it would be that long. But the world is really big, and it's a lot of fun. And you got these different equipment things that you can have, where like eventually you can build things to make you get around faster, which makes exploring so much easier. But still, at the same time, even with all those upgrades and what have you, like we're still falling into that trap where like we get greedy and whatnot. We spend too much time somewhere and we start running out of oxygen, and we're like, oh no! And we start like panicking and trying to figure out how to save ourselves before we die. And as far as dying goes in the game, it's not too terribly punishing. It does like spawn you back at your base, and everything that you had in your pockets like ends up like in a chest or something that you have to go back to and try to get all the materials. But as far as like equipment goes, like all your equipment that you have equipped to you, like that stays with you. So it's only like the resources that you had like in your backpack. That's the only stuff that drops, and you have to go try and gather up again. But I love those little moments where we're like, there's wreckages all over the place, right? From people that have crash landed on this planet, or other prisoners maybe here and there. But yeah, there's like, you'll find ships, or you'll find old bases and settlements and what have you that you can go into and explore and loot around in. And often, admittedly, sometimes like we would go into these places and I'd get lost, right? Because it's big, there's a lot of twisting corridors and what have you, and I start running low on oxygen.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh no! And I'm trying to like run out, and I'm taking the wrong turns here and there because I'm panicking.
Yep.
And yeah, oh man, it gets pretty chaotic pretty fast, when you have that whole oxygen aspect of it. And, as far as like terraforming a planet goes, I mean, I suppose eventually, once you have an atmosphere and what have you, there'll be oxygen on the planet. And I guess, I don't know if that's the end of the game.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm curious about too. And that's why I'm hoping to get to that point to kind of see where it takes us. And then if we do get it fully terraformed, like what happens? Do we just continue kind of building and doing what we want, exploring the areas? It'll be real interesting to find out. And to the whole thing with the oxygen, like when we first started playing, you heard it. I got lost inside of that very first ship. I didn't know where I was. I started panicking. I started making wrong turns, and then once I got oxygen, I went, "Thank God."
Oh man, it's such a good time, and there's so many ways in which you can avoid that. Where like you can take like certain steps to properly prepare for these little delves that you go into, like. You wanna explore a ship? Okay, well you can gather up some materials. You can make a little habitat right outside of the wreckage that'll produce oxygen that you can run into if you're getting low, or you can make these oxygen canisters that you can utilize. You just carry those in your pocket, and you can pop one whenever your oxygen gets too low. But at the same time, you doing that with the oxygen in your pocket, you're obviously sacrificing space in your backpack for loot, right? There's a whole bunch of loot that you want to get, but a limited amount of item slots in your backpack. So, you got to weigh your options there and see what you want to opt for. But I mean, doing all that prep and everything, and trying to be kind of meticulous about, our approach to exploring and adventure. I don't know, it's pretty great. Like man, I can't get enough of it. It's so much fun, and just like hanging out at the base too, and doing little, crafting little things, or making little, or growing food, and figuring out your steps and planning out, how far ahead, like what you want to obtain or craft, and just prepping everything, especially with having all your friends playing with you, and it puts that whole other obstacle in your way. Like you could be, trying to prep something, and your buddy is just like, okay, well, I just did this thing. And you're like, oh crap, I was just trying to do that. And now you've already done it. I just wasted, how much time. So you got to like strategize with your buddies and whatnot to see who's doing what, have like an overarching goal, what you guys want to do. Gosh, I don't think I have a negative thing to say about the game whatsoever.
Like, one thing that took me by surprise, and I didn't notice it until later, like, I noticed that there was a certain list of things that we needed to achieve, like, as soon as we first loaded into the game. And I was like, okay, so those are the things that I need to achieve, not knowing that all your friends are also knocking off those achievements for you. So as you're going down the line, like, I look up at the list now and I was like, well, that one thing I was about to work on, it's gone.
Right.
There you guys go. Yeah, we just made this thing. I go, oh, okay, so we all are doing it. Gotcha. It's not.
Yep. It's great. No, I do love that, how, like, there are some games that haven't been able to do that necessarily, where, sometimes there's that, that beginner's tutorial where it's like, do this, do that, do this. And some games do it in a way where each individual player has to do it, even if they're on a team and they're trying to survive together. Each one of them has to do these goals. But the Planet Crafter, any one of us could do it, and it knocks off for the whole team, and it makes us feel like an actual cohesive team.
Right.
Everybody's achieving something. Now, you didn't get the whole experience from the get-go. I know we described it to you like a few times.
Yeah.
Because me and our other buddy, we've been playing all week, so we made like all the mistakes that you could possibly make, and we died numerous times trying to figure things out. And then when you come along, we know exactly what to do from the get-go, and we kind of streamlined everything right, like all at once, where we made a ton of progress in a small amount of time.
Right.
And gave you an easier time of it, which I don't know if you enjoyed that, or if you would have rather have had, the failing experience, for the first like 10 hours of playing the game. I don't know, to each their own.
Well, at this point, there's no knowing
right.
whether or not we would have had too much of a hard time, say if the three of us would have tried it for the first time together, if we would have had the same failing experience, or if we would have had an easier time of it with the three of our heads together going, oh, I think I understand.
Right. And both myself and our other buddy, we figured out, through discussion, that we are on the same page as far as our reluctance, I suppose, to look things up for games that we were really enjoying in the moment, and we would refuse to look things up, so it just made things all the harder,
Right.
And then we just kept failing again and again and again until we figured out everything. But it was a pretty cool experience, and I mean, personally, I enjoy having all the knowledge now, and everything seems streamlined and goes pretty smoothly, except for, there was one little hiccup today that happened that kind of frustrated me. Man. As far as like, okay, so all right, let me give you the lowdown here. All right, so what happened was
Squat down real low. Let's take a listen.
yeah, yeah. So we had this huge room, right? One of the rooms that we have at our base. It's the biggest room. Well, one of the biggest room, and it's our storage room, right? Where we have all these storage containers, and everything is labeled and organized, and it's very satisfying. And I love that room, and I wanted to add a couple more chests, right? A couple more cabinets for us to put more materials into.
So you wanted to make it harder on himself.
Yeah, so I wanted to add, like, I added one of the cabinets, and I was like, oh, I don't like the placement of that. I'm gonna delete it quick, because if you deconstruct something, it gives you all the materials back. It doesn't like gyp you on materials if you delete it. It gives you all the materials back so you can replace it. And I tried to do that, and I ended up deleting the whole room. So the entire room deleted. All the lockers were still there, but the entire room was deleted. And I was like, oh no. So I tried to put the room back, where it was, but it's like, no, you can't put the room back because there's all these cabinets in the way. And I was like, oh no. So I had to empty all the cabinets, had to delete all the cabinets, had to craft the cabinets somewhere else so that I could put all materials in there because I don't have enough room in my backpack for everything that was there. And I had to create this whole little mishmash of collected, cabinets and materials just so I could replace the room. And then I had to take all the stuff back out of the cabinets and replace the cabinets back into the room and organize everything and label everything again and put all the materials back into those cabinets. And that was that was pretty frustrating.
I love coming into the door then, seeing what had happened, and then seeing your character and you go, don't fucking speak of this.
Don't you say a goddamn thing.
I go, okay, well then you have fun. I'm gonna go do my own thing.
Yeah. Man, I love how you were like, at one point you were like, hey, do you still have the plastic, bioplastic, or whatever it was called? Yeah. And there was chests everywhere with random crap in them, and I was like, you'll just have to look for it yourself. And,
I go, no, that's fine. I'll go look for it. Okay, love you. Bye.
Oh, man. Thank you for joining us on the Merle and Locke podcast. If you enjoyed this banter, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/merleandlocke, or simply follow the link in the description. Thank you.